I think as Ruth properly introduced our three panelists, are the ones that you want to hear. I remember in the days when I was sitting where you were as a student, and we read our textbook with classes, and all the questions were huge questions, and so tonight we're not going to do that. We're going to tell you about some real nuts and bolts and things like, how to make all this happen, because, and I'll give you a couple of stories. One, right now, due to the economic climate, one would wonder, like, why would anybody want to go sailing when there's no wind? And, so why would anybody want to start a fashion business at this point in time? The other day I was thinking about tonight, and I was thinking about, that would be something that, why would we want to do this now? And I looked up, and I was at the corner of Fairfax and 3rd, and it said Farmers Market since 1932. And I think if you've gone back into history, 1932 was probably the 2009 of the early part of the century. So, we're in a massive economic correction. We're going towards a new economy. The adjustment from the old economy to the new economy is going to be a little bit painful. It's going to probably be a little bit longer than we hope. The input of all this money that's coming to the system is like giving an alcoholic a drink. The first 20 minutes are going to be great, but then we have some inflation that's going to follow up and some other difficulties. So, but I'd like to share with you that when I was in physics, there was a law, and I wasn't very good at physics, but there was a law of the conservation of energy. At any one point in time, the energy of the universe was equal, and that's also true absolutely in business. The amount of opportunity today and the amount of opportunity in the highest boom years are absolutely equal. It's a little bit harder to identify today than in the boom years, but I can absolutely guarantee you that if you go on your computer tonight and look up at all the great businesses on the New York Stock Exchange or any New York Stock Exchange, which were founded between 1930 and 1940, the height of the Depression, you'll find that there were many of them, and you'll be surprised at some of the names. So if you got a good idea, go for it. When I first started in business, I was just out of graduate school, and I went to Thunderbird Graduate School, which is the #1 business college, international business school in America today. And I had an old man by the name of Mr. Campbell, who was 93, worked for the Armor Company, and he came in, and I was into macro theory, and all had great ideas, and he came in, took his glasses down, and said, "I'm going to tell you guys how to open a letter of credit." And I went, "Really?" Gee, that's exciting. So, and so this guy painstakingly put up, and he showed us and drilled us how to open a letter of credit. Well, let me tell you something. I've opened up, I don't know, Mark, how many letters of credit have we opened? I mean, I've opened up certainly 10,000 letters of credit in my career, okay? And I had Mr. Campbell tell me about that. Well, that's kind of the idea of tonight. Now, and I give you one other little example about the importance of this. When I first started in business, I was in the Netherlands, and I was importing used clothing. I got the really bright idea to import new clothing. So I went and saw somebody, and I said, "Well, how do you do this?" And he said, "Well, you want to learn how to be an expert on importation of clothing?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, buy some. And then go to the factory, watch them pack the boxes, be there the day of the pickup, and watch them put it into the truck. Follow the truck to the docks, watch them unload it, put it in the consolidation terminal, be there the day they're going to load the ship, fly across the ocean, and be there the day that it's going to unload in Rotterdam, watch them unload the ship, watch them put it on the truck, and then look at all the paperwork for everything you've done, and now you're an expert in the importation of clothing or anything else." And I did that. I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and then from there I went to New Jersey, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, Ruth?
I forgot two things.
Well, go for it.
I didn't say that you are the founder and CEO of American Rag. desire to get people down to the front. I also didn't say who I was.
Oh, okay.
I'm Ruth Weisberg. I'm Dean of the Brodsky School of Fine Arts, and again, making you very welcome.
Thank you, we cleared that one up. In any case, so with that, I'm going to ask our wonderful panel, maybe Ilse will start off with us, and we're going to go into some nuts and bolts on how to open a fashion and apparel business.
Good evening. I'm just going to give you a framework that the real experts can fill in for you. And because of time constraints, you'll see some pages. I'm just going to go down to the bottom of the page so you don't have to really analyze all of the data. This is the industry. The industry that you're talking about in Los Angeles has 122, give or take, employees at any given time. Contrast that with 1997 and you'll see an inverse relationship between the amount we ship and the amount of employees. It's not only because of outsourcing, it's also because of technology. But we have been consistently supporting this economy. The interesting thing about this is what the government counts is, by the NAICS codes, is what the government counts are those that are employing people. What is also happening is the growth in what is the household income survey, your independent creators. So when I go back and I show you those who are actually sewing and cutting and making, that probably is a diminishing return at this point. Apparel wholesaling, you're talking about Santee Alley, and importers. Textile products, all the finishing of jeans is being done in Los Angeles, no matter where they're made. And then you have fashion design services. But all these related industry segments are the growth areas of our economy, the people who get 1099s as opposed to W-2s. And the signs of growth. We have new trade shows all the time. We have 19 schools in this region that teach design, merchandising, pattern making, all fully enrolled. Some of them are junior colleges, some of them are private schools, but all of them have a degree of one form and another, fully enrolled. And then Star Power. What is on the behind of Jessica Simpson is much more important than what is on the runway in Paris right now. And then there's Orange County. Surf Style is now on Rodeo Drive. So why are we growing like this? We're much less conservative than anywhere else in the world. There are no rules. We can wear white in December. Whole Foods started here. Most of your niche marketing, Forever 21 started here. Your niche market retailers start here. American Rag started here. And the multi-ethnic mix. I did a survey here, and I did this analysis for Korea University. Fully 36% of our population in this region has English as the second language. So 36% come from households where English is not spoken at home. This is where the industry is right now. If I laid this over where the industry was 7 or 8 years ago, you would see it much more centered in downtown Los Angeles. It is spreading all over for reasons of domestic manufacturing. The Inland Empire is where the Vietnamese make merchandise, and of course Orange County continues to grow as a center of style. The interesting fact about the creative economy here, and this is something that our schools don't deal with, even in the higher education. Los Angeles does not have Fortune 500 companies, but we are number 1 or number 2 in the design-based industries of the universe. And that's where the growth is. The smaller companies with employees of less than 25. Now the business models, which brings us directly to the question, is fashion art or is it business? and I come from the land of business. So we know that those who understand the business of fashion will last much longer than those who only appreciate the art of fashion. These are the basic elements of business. You, as Marshall School students, know these. As everyone has marketing, transportation, production, distribution. However, the way they are put together, and these are the variables within those business models. Every company in our industry does each of these things differently. If you have 5 companies, you have 5 different business models. But the record keeping, the technology, the IPR, the HR issues are different for each company. There is no one model. I've picked 10 variations of business models because it took 10 minutes. And if I had another 10 minutes, I could pick another 10. We have large conglomerates, Lucky Brand, Juicy Couture. Both of those are owned by Liz Claiborne. International corporations, Billabong, Esprit, Speedo. Speedo's owned by an Englishman. Billabong is Australian, and Esprit is now owned by the Chinese. But these are all brands, and these design rooms are all here. Licensees of Disney, Jerry Lee. Manufacturers exclusively for retail, Baby, Chico's, Gap, all of these. The design rooms are here. Separate divisions of umbrella corporations, Roxy for Quicksilver, Vince for Kellwood. You have where the owner is the entrepreneur, American Apparel, St. John. They go from the fabric to the retail. And then there are those that use contractors, like True Religion. Where the owner is the sales executive, Joe's Jeans and Hardtail, where the owner is the designer, Trina Turk, Sue Wong. The owner is the production executive, and all of the private label developers are usually the production executives. Where the owner is the importer, Body Glove, Dynasty. These are just 10. Another 5 would have taken in Mark's standards, and I'm sure Ron could give you another 10 within his client base. So, what are the mechanics of success? Now, mind you, I'm taking the design feature out of this, totally out of this. Can you describe what distinguishes your company or your wish to be a company from the competition? Or are you just another t-shirt brand with a graphic? Do you have a memorable logo or trade style? And do you have a good attorney that seeks that out? Can you survive one season of an economic downturn? Just one. What is your sales budget and where are you making it? And your product presentation and placement for a targeted consumer base. You cannot sell size 2s and size 0s to women over 50. It doesn't work. So what are the 4 ingredients for apparel manufacturing? And again, I'm taking product design and fit out of this. Someone else can speak to that. But can you identify your customer demographically? Do you have the money? The financial capabilities are the realities. You cannot go to Ron Friedman with a good sketch. You can't even go to him with a portfolio of great sketches. It's the financial capabilities beyond your parents' credit card. What are your sources of supply? Where are you going to get the zippers? Where are you get trimmings? Where do you get the technology? And then the methodology. How are you going to do it? One part of this that I didn't write down, but it's clearly vital, is who's your team? You can't do it alone. What is your management team and how many people do you need to be successful? So let's talk about what you can do, what your talent is. We did a survey In 2008, we were asked to do a survey of our industry by the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, and every industry in my team, which is the creative industry team, textiles, plastics, the food industry, was asked to do a survey of members in the organization. What are the skill sets required? And we were unanimous. Unanimous. Fast food service jobs do not look good on your runway. It's irrelevant if you're coming into any of our businesses. We need to talk to you, and you need to talk to us. You need to be able to write, you need to be able to look us in the eye and tell us what you're doing. And math. And I'll show you a little math test that my students at Cal State Northridge failed. Advanced computer abilities. Word is not enough. It's just not enough. Knowing how to Twitter and knowing how to do emails is not going to get you a job. And then, of course, the usual. Whether you are a high school graduate, a college graduate, or a master's graduate, organizational skills, timeliness, and showing up without a hole in your jeans. Very important. Geography. We're an industry of distance. 85% of what we ship from Los Angeles is made somewhere else. And chances are you're going to have to figure out how to get something from one place to another, short of following the boat and flying there. Do you know where Bangladesh is? Do you know what Quiz is? That's the qualified industrial zone that allows Egypt and Jordan to ship through Israel. So what cannot be handled through politics gets handled through business. Korea. What is the issue with Korea, with the fair trade zones and the free trade acts? And these are the things you need to know to be successful in our business. Math. How many units in a gross? To pick a 12-piece pre-package in a size ratio, how many smalls do you pick for 5 dozen? If you can't do that, you can't distribute merchandise. Basic math. If the fabric is 60 inches wide and the chest is 15 inches, how many pattern pieces fit across it? Can't design if you don't know that. And history. If the trend of the times is the new look, what year do you have to investigate? If I give my design room the Beau Brummel effect, what are they looking for? And if you don't understand history or what happened in those periods and why they looked like that, you will not be an effective merchandiser or designer or be able to communicate with someone who does know this. I picked these out in last month from the California Apparel News. Oh, Andrew. These are entry-level positions. Probably all of them are at least $45,000, $50,000, entry-level positions. But without basic math, without understanding what quality is, without understanding as an import coordinator where everything is, without understanding the computer, and without knowing math, you can't be a purchasing assistant. These are entry-level jobs into our industry. We have a great industry, ladies and gentlemen. We really do. We don't care what color you are. We don't care what sex you are. We don't care what age you are. We don't care what school you came from. How hard can you work, and how good are you at this? Entrepreneurial opportunity is the growth pattern for California. It's the growth pattern for our industry, but particularly for Los Angeles. And this ever-changing global business requires well-trained, and the operative word is creative. Because everything old is new again, and everything that is today will be gone tomorrow. You have to open your mind to creativity. So a few trends and predictions, okay? Global realities for apparel. The brand owners are continuing to develop their own retail operation. At last count, there are 12 pencils at retail in our business. 12 stores from Macy's to Walmart. That's all, if you really want to take a big order. The only way to grow is the development of retail based on brand. So we're back to the development of a brand. At the same time, U.S. trends are crossing borders. We call them transnationals. Again, what is in People magazine is in Shanghai. What starlet is wearing what is in Paris. It's a transnational. That is not to say everyone looks alike or everyone's dressing alike. The closet trends are falling prices for apparel. We call it the lipstick index. When you can't afford a house or a car or a boat or a semester, you might buy a lipstick because the frugal fatigue, try saying that fast, sets in. You're tired of being poor after a while. So you start by buying a lipstick, and then perhaps a young man will buy a belt, and then goes up to a shirt. But it always begins with apparel. And fashion and falling prices. Everything else has gone up, from healthcare to vacations to automobile to energy. Only apparel has gone down. You can buy a cashmere sweater now for $90. They used to start at $800. And they change so quickly. I'm always amused by all these lawsuits going on with people knocking other people off. By the time the thing gets to court, it's over. We have a 10-week cycle at the store level. After 10 weeks, that merchandise is marked down to zero. And one does not have to be rich to be fashionable anymore. In every one of those magazines like People or Globe or The Inquirer, they're showing you what the stars are wearing at hundreds of thousands of dollars and how you can look the same way for a fraction of the cost. Merchandising is no longer a one-size-fits-all. If you think everyone is going to be wearing something, you're wrong. We have a very diverse structure of fashion right now, and it's not everyone wearing the same thing. I don't see two people in this room wearing the same garment. And fashion trends. Price without profit is a thing of the past. We have been now in a cycle of everybody leaving the country to make merchandise and finding a place to make it ever cheaper. Walmart is as cheap as they come right now. There will be someone cheaper in the next 10 years. No one questions that. But price without profit is not the way to grow a business. Financial mechanisms after we come out of this. I have a very aggressive 2011. I think it might not be until 2013, but financial mechanisms will go beyond letter of credit. You'll have to deal with the global community on a basis of banking, not putting the money up front. And then the thing we're seeing right now, which is very exciting, is that the global manufacturers, the manufacturers in China, in Turkey, in Pakistan, are coming here to make deals with our designers and our manufacturers to create merchandise for their own country, for their own growing middle class. The only thing we can do that no one else can do is we can design and merchandise, and no one else can do that. I have been going to Asia since 1974, and not one brand from Japan or China has ever crossed the ocean this way as a trendsetter. Not one brand. It's all designed and created here for reasons that would be a whole nother panel. So, predictions. How am I doing, Ruth, on time? Okay. Predictions. Over the next 5 years, we'll see more retail consolidation. The 12 will go to 7. You might not see stores like Sears or Saks in the next 10 years. Specialty retailing into niche markets will continue to give opportunity for new lines. If you haven't all visited a pop-up store, be aware that that's the next direction. A store coming into a mall for 6 months, just 6 months to see if the concept works, and then moving out. Fabrications and size specifications need to be transferred worldwide in a language. This is not to say that there will be universal fit. It will never happen. A size 8 will vary from person to person, from manufacturer to manufacturer, and from country to country. The problem has been that it transfers from inches to meters when you send the specifications offshore. And then when it comes back here, it's back to inches. And you've lost meters and inches here or there. So fit is getting to be very, very transparent and needs to be adjusted. But style will have no cultural boundaries. What the stars are wearing in the media will continue to drive fashion. The only thing that will change will be who the stars are. So, 2014, the big change will be the brand landscape. You'll still have major brands like Jockey, Ralph Lauren, Nike, Prada. I just saw, not just, about 2 months ago when Prada tried to go public again, you saw their balance sheet. They spend more money on advertising, over $6 million a year, than they make in profit. Doesn't work in our budget system, does it? But in order to maintain their position as a brand, they are spending that kind of money. Retailers designing for themselves the private label like Americana for JCPenney and Ink for Macy's are continuing to grow because that's where the stores find their margins. The low recognition brands, the ones that are between the majors and between the private label, are the ones that will have a difficult time in this economy for retail, and that is why they're developing their own retail stores, because they are the ones that will be affected by this squeeze at the buying level. Just a little bit of information about who we are. We're kind of the traffic cops of the industry, between the designers, the manufacturers, the banks, the factors, the legal teams, the accounting teams, and we're the ones who call to find out where we don't know it all, but we sure do know who knows it. So that's what we do, and I welcome your questions after our other presenters, and look forward to seeing you all again.
Our next speaker is one of my business partners, Larry Russ, and I think, I don't know how to introduce Larry. Larry's a wonderful man. He's deeply bright. He's got 2 feet on the ground. He's got great communication skills. He's got a beautiful family. He's intensely passionate, and he works like a dog. So that's Larry.
I grew up in Los Angeles. I worked in my parents' retail stores when I was a kid, growing up in high school and college during summers and Christmas vacation. And that was the time before they had big malls all over the place. So really small retail was, other than department stores, small retail stores were the name of the game. And we had retail stores in downtown Los Angeles in the garment district, which was packed on holidays, because that's where people went to buy their bargains and off-price sales. There were no Walmarts, there were no Targets, and I was a busy camper when I was a kid, but I was in retail. And as I was growing up, I made a promise to myself, I am never going to be a retailer. There were some long days in the summer where hardly anybody walked into the store. And I'd be bored to tears. I'd start drawing pictures. I'd do anything to keep myself occupied. So I made myself this promise. And I went to law school, and I became a trial lawyer, and I started out as an antitrust lawyer, and I was doing these big cases. And then I started working in the intellectual property arena, which is patents, trademarks, and copyright. And I started handling some pretty big-time apparel cases. I represent all kinds of apparel companies, from American Rag to Forever 21, to Guess Jeans, to you name it. I've represented many, many companies, apparel companies. And the odd thing about it was that I found that I really enjoyed representing companies in the apparel business because I found I knew something about it. I found that I could relate to those cases from not just purely a legal point of view, but because I understood what these businesses were about. So I tended to take more and more of these cases and get involved in these cases. Now, what happened over time is I finally got involved in my own label and took my own chances. Some of you may be familiar with this label. Has anybody ever heard of a company that sells sunglasses called Black Fly? It's a very edgy label. They had a label called Fly Girls. And we introduced a junior line of clothing. I had a client that talked me into buying this label with him. And we introduced this line, and the name was very cute, but I had the wrong team member. And even though we got into all the stores, the clothing was too expensive, it didn't work out, we lost our money. And I learned more from that experience than I have learned from any experience in my life in terms of what to do and what not to do. So, the purpose of my conversation with you this evening is to talk about the to-dos and not-to-dos and to give you my point of view from a legal perspective in terms of the nuts and bolts on how to proceed. So, I'm going to start. Now, all of you growing up have picked a team of some sort, sooner or later. Basketball team, a baseball team, a team to present a project in school. The team is important. Who your team members are is important. One of you may be a talented writer, one of you may be a talented designer, one of you may be a talented administrator. The team is critical. So if you're going to come up with an idea and you want to get involved in fashion business or any business, the team is important. Make sure the players that you're going to be playing with are people that can help you advance, people that have talents that you may not have that are complementary. So that's important. So let's take it from the beginning. You have a team, 2 or 3 partners, so to speak, and they want to start a business. What are you going to do? You have an idea, you have a concept. Execution is everything. There are 10 million concepts that come up every day. People have terrific ideas, but they don't succeed because the execution is not happening. It doesn't happen in a way that can lend itself to success. So you have to have a plan, you have to have the right team. Suppose you come up with a plan, you identify the right team, what are you going to do now? What kind of structure are you going to want for your company? There are basically 3 choices. There's a partnership, a corporation, or what is now the entity of choice, an LLC. It's called a limited liability company. Now, suppose you don't have any money. You really can't afford to hire a lawyer, and you don't want to spend any money. A partnership is just a group of people, 2 or more, that get together, they can write their agreement on a napkin and say, we're going into business, this is the way we're going to divvy it up, no lawyer, no nothing. It's enforceable, it works, but it's got risks. Why? Because in a partnership, when you start a business in a partnership, all of the debts of the partnership are your debts personally as well. So if your business crashes and burns and you end up owing $100,000 within the day, guess what? You owe that $100,000 personally. So generally, I don't recommend people getting into a business through a partnership because it's too much personal liability. But if you don't have any money and you want to take your chances, and that's the way you want to get started to see if it's going to work, it's an option. The next option is a corporation. About 20 years ago, Congress made it easier, and state legislatures made it easier all around the country for small businesses to create corporations and to have healthcare benefits, to have tax benefits equal to some of the big corporations. So they made it much easier to create a corporation. Now, corporations have one really big advantage. What's that? No personal liability. When you start a corporation and you get in business, you can invest money to get it started, and if you lose your money, that's it. You've lost your money. As long as you follow all the rules, there can be no personal liability. Now, there are lots of rules to follow, and I'm not going to get into that with you here, but suffice it to say for now that a corporate entity protects you from personal liability. Now, the problem with a corporation is, one, it costs money to form one. Two, every year you've got to file a tax return. Three, every year you've got to have corporate meetings. You're required to have corporate meetings. Meetings with the director, you've got to approve everything, you've got to follow corporate formalities. And that costs money, because usually people do that with a lawyer, or you don't have to do it with a lawyer. So it's a little bit more expensive. Some people don't like to have corporate formalities or follow corporate formalities. So there's this new entity, de jure, called a limited liability company. And it's kind of a mixture. It's kind of the best of both worlds. There's a partnership, which is very informal, that you can write on a napkin, or the agreement on a napkin, and a corporation. The good thing about a limited liability company is no formalities and no personal liability. It's treated for all intents and purposes just like a corporation in terms of creditors being able to go beyond the entity itself. So you have to capitalize the entity to get it going and to move the business forward. But if it doesn't work out, basically you're protecting your personal assets. That's why limited liability companies are so popular today. Okay, so you've decided, after you've gotten advice, to go with a limited liability company. What's the next thing you're going to do? Well, what's the name of your company going to be? Now, people think, well, that's simple. I'll just pick a name. Well, as Ilse mentioned, it is one of the most important things that you can do. Picking a name is, particularly in the fashion world, an incredibly important thing to do. It takes time. You're going to want to do lots of searches to find out what other names are. You do not want to start your company and introduce a label and get sued by 50 different companies right off the bat. That will be the first thing that is going to put you out of business. So you want to pick a name. Why is the name important? Well, your name is going to say everything you want to say about yourself. If you develop a very cool item, a blouse, a pair of jeans, you want people to associate your name with that item, so that if it takes off, the next time you introduce something, people remember, oh, those were the people that introduced that jean. I'll tell you a very quick story. George Marciano, who was the founder of Guess Jeans, how did it get started? How did that whole thing get started? Well, George and his brothers came to the U.S. and they opened some retail stores. They were doing okay, but they didn't really get off the map until George had the bright idea of bringing in this really, really skinny jean with a zipper up the side of the pant. Do you remember? Anybody remember that jean? It was a while back. Well, I'm sorry?
The Maryland team.
The Maryland team. Now, he couldn't get anybody to take it. He couldn't get anybody to buy it. So one day he goes into Bloomingdale's and he talks about to carrying 5 pairs of those jeans. Sold out the first day. The buyer calls him back and says, hey, can you deliver some more of those? He delivers 20. Next day, sold out. Bring 100. Next day, sold out. That's how Guess Jeans got off the market. Now, the first thing they did do was create a trademark. So people got to know, hey, those jeans are associated with Guess Jeans. That's how they got started. So names are very, very important. You want to spend a lot of time picking a name. What else is important about starting a business? Well, when you pick your team, you also want to have an agreement. You know, things go best when you figure out how you want to separate at the very beginning, when everybody's friendly and everybody's looking up and everybody's looking in the future, it's really a good idea, if you're going to be spending any money on anything, to put everything in writing. Somehow, people tend to forget what the original deal was when things start to go wrong. So you want to have everything in writing at the beginning. That's not just true for the agreement with your teammates in starting a business, but in terms of any commitment that you're going to make in writing that is going to involve money. If you're going to be spending a lot of money or investing a lot of time and energy in anything, you want to get it in writing. You want to have some kind of an understanding about what your obligations are and what the other side's obligations are, so it's clear. Because if you have something in writing and it's clear, that is one good way to avoid any kind of a controversial problem down the line. If it's clear, people don't fight about it. People fight about things when it's not clear, when there isn't an agreement, when it's gray, then people take advantage of gray. You don't want gray, you want black and white. So it's a pain in the butt to put things in paper. Sometimes it requires a lot of patience, sometimes it requires a lot of negotiation, sometimes it requires getting people to face what they really want. But you want to know that up front. And you know, a lot of businesses fall apart at the very beginning. All of a sudden, the teammates that you thought you were going to get along with so well really don't see eye to eye with you on who's going to lead this ship, who's going to have what responsibilities, who's going to be responsible for X, Y, Z. You want to put it all out in writing, on paper, get everybody to sign off on it, get around on the same page before you get started. And that's all I have to say, and I'll be available for questions and